Okay, welcome back to the Jiu Jitsu Mindset. My name is Pete Deely. Professor Lucas is away teaching this morning, so you guys are stuck with just me. Uh, there's folks who've been asking some questions about our online class for kids, and um, obviously submission coffee. People are always asking about that. You can sign up for our mailing list. I'll keep you apprised of everything at the jujitsumindset.com. So please give that a look. And every week, it seems like we just continue to meet some of the greatest people in the world, and this week's no exception. Um, we're talking to each other from around the globe, so it's we're part of the modern communication revolution right now. So in other times in my life, I wouldn't have had this privilege, but today, I'm lucky enough that I get to talk with. And I want to pronounce your name correctly, and I don't want to like be too much of an American, but I'm going to just stay with my, poor American Tom. And refer to you as Tom Energy, but Tom Energia might have been a better way to say it. So either way, I'm so glad you're here and welcome to our show
Thank you, brother. My pleasure. And greetings from the Netherlands here in the sunny weather.
in the sunny weather. We are in the desert of Arizona, which I know you visited not too long ago. It has just turned beautiful, so we're grateful here. There, I'm glad it's sunny out there by you as well. We, as you know, this podcast, we often ask about sort of the role that jujitsu plays in people's lives and, to sort of you as a conduit to bring jujitsu to other people. And I would like to ask the first question of if you were to not have dedicated yourself to jujitsu, what might be the road you would have taken if you hadn't taken this one?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it would always be. I think there's always one factor that travels through whatever thing in life you do.
Mhm.
So I started out as an elementary teacher. Some people might know I used to be a survival and outdoor sport instructor before that, and then I became a capoeira instructor. So capoeira, Brazilian martial art as well.
Mhm.
And then jiu-jitsu just kind of was like a side thing for me to do besides capoeira, and it became completely obsessed. But
Yeah.
I think the thing that covers all those aspects is I would like to work with people. So for me, jiu-jitsu, I love jiu-jitsu, but it's just an instrument. It could have well been capoeira or kickboxing, or
Mhm.
I think in the end it would always have been martial arts because I just love the use of the instrument as martial arts to help people grow
Yeah.
as individuals or as a team. Or I think that's the most thing. I think deep in my DNA, I was born to be a teacher and share and learn, which is
Yeah.
also very important about a teacher. I think that would be the real thing. I hope I wouldn't have been an elementary teacher full time because, man, I don't know about you guys there in the States, but that's hard here. Respect
Yeah.
out to all the teachers there
Yeah, no
in any
kidding.
field. But I think I would always have used sports or martial arts as a way to teach and help people build themselves up because I think it's a beautiful way and a very honest way to
Yes.
yeah, to discover things in and about yourself. And yeah, I think that's the thing that would have always been stuck out. That, or I would have been an how do you pronounce it? Archaeologist.
Archaeologist,
That
no
was what
kidding.
I wanted to be that as a kid, man. But I have to confess to you, Peter, that was back when a kid, when I thought Indiana Jones was what you would actually do 24/7. Years later, I found out that was not true, but
There was a period of time where we
that
could have
wasn't Peter.
you would we instead of being here, you'd be on some academic stage talking
I would
about
be
your
there in
latest find.
Arizona, man,
Yeah, that's
living
right.
in the
Yeah,
desert.
we got so I am curious about capoeira and I'm not quite sure what the progression of your martial arts life, but it sounds like capoeira precedes jujitsu. And I I am curious sometimes about the relationship between dancing and
Mm,
martial arts at time. And when I watch capoeira, for me, um, the martial aspect and then the pure artistic aspect of it, that it's just such a beautiful thing to watch in and of itself that for me, it has some relationship to watching incredible, some combination of gymnastics and
mhm.
dancing. And I'm curious what you think about that. Like, and I'm not quite sure, having not studied capoeira myself, like the interplay between the the training partners, if it has something in common with jujitsu, or if it's more you're you're moving the body without necessarily a sparring partner most of the time, or do you need a training partner? But could you talk about those two things? I'm curious
Yeah,
if
sure.
I'm the only one
Um,
that sees dance and capoeira or not.
It's a big question because it's built of several components. So let me break it down a little bit. So first off, let's just rewind a little bit. Now everyone's listening. I think most of the audience here does jujitsu.
Hmm.
Now imagine you telling your neighbor or someone at a birthday party that you do jujitsu. What do they think? They're gonna make karate sounds. They're gonna
Yes.
say, "Oh, you're just rolling on the floor and hugging each other. It's no sport. It's not technique."
Yes.
Now remember that mindset. As when
Right.
I talk about capoeira now, you are now the guy. You are now the neighbor who doesn't understand. So yeah, but this is important because
Right.
I can talk to you from a perspective of a capoeira instructor and a jiu-jitsu black belt. So I really
Yeah.
know about both. But I've also been there when I started out capoeira thinking it was a dance. But I've also been there when I did capoeira thinking that jiu-jitsu was just two guys hugging on the floor.
Right.
So
Right.
keep that in mind. So people
Okay.
listening, before you judge on capoeira, people judge on jiu-jitsu the same way. For
Yes.
us,
Yes.
we're now in this bubble of jiu-jitsu, thinking, oh well, we know everything about jiu-jitsu. But for your mom and for your at least for my mom and my aunt, it's just the same as karate on the floor.
Right.
So
Right.
now with capoeira, I think most people know it evolved hundreds of years ago from slavery in Brazil, and they had to disguise the martial arts as a dance. So
Okay.
that is the actual historical way that it developed. So they
Okay.
couldn't do martial arts; it was prohibited for the slaves. So they made it into dance, and nowadays it kind of stuck. And let me tell you, I do jiu-jitsu full time, grappling, nogi. I teach seminars. I'm traveling tomorrow. I'm a black belt. I also do MMA. So I fight MMA, wrestling a little bit. My stand-up sucks, to be honest. And I've done capoeira for all my life. Let me tell you, capoeira is physically the hardest thing I've ever done. Most of my injuries are from capoeira. But the
Yeah.
thing is, you have to combine the speed and athleticism of striking arts, but also the extreme athleticism and flexibility of acrobatics. And that is
Yes.
very demanding on the body. Now, the confusion with capoeira is that when it looks like a dance, you're not hitting each other. And that's the whole goal because there's no protection, no mouth guard, no gloves, no shin pads. The thing with capoeira is most things are allowed. We can do the kani basami, scissor takedown. We can kick each other in the head. We can elbow. We can knee strike. We can headbutt. But the fact that these things are allowed doesn't necessarily mean that they are polite. And that's the weird thing
Yeah.
about capoeira. It has kind of these nuances and these traits where you're like trying to spar with each other and try to keep the flow. Let's call it like this. Is jiu-jitsu very effective? Well, it depends. There's people who do jiu-jitsu for self-defense. There's people who do jiu-jitsu and only do takedown, pahada, take the back and choke. And then there's people who guard pull, reverse lapel guard and turn around into worm guard and people who flow roll. And there's the recreational jiu-jitsu, there's competitive jiu-jitsu. So it's a big question. Now there's
Right.
capoeira where it's just for show, and that's what we usually see.
Hmm.
But capoeira, when I was living in Brazil for 6 months, half a year, and I've been doing capoeira my whole life here, I've had many kicks in my head that capoeira. People sweep you over, kick you, headbutt you, scissor takedown. And capoeira can be a real fight, but the main goal is never to hurt or injure someone or to hit them as with sparring and kickboxing. So it's so nuanced and so complex.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty lies in the combination. When I train with my friends who are also a higher grade in capoeira, then the kicks go very fast. I'm not doing my thing and he's doing his thing. We try to have this just like jiu-jitsu, this flow roll,
Yeah.
where it looks like I'm turning and he's turning and we're both doing bare bottles, but no, we're how you say, entwined in each other's game. And with capoeira, the same thing. I kick, he dodges, he takes me back, and it's like a playful sparring. It's really cool, actually. And the higher you get, the longer you do it, the cooler it gets.
Yeah.
But there's also people who just do it for the show element,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
the same thing with most martial arts.
And yeah. And I meant that introduction to the conversation as a compliment because I think that when I look at dancing, I as just people just dancing, that sort of proprioception, where is my body in space? How do I control my body? To me is extreme act of athleticism when it's at the higher levels of execution. And as a beginning, I'm a beginner jujitsu player. The Professor Lucas is our
Me
expert,
too.
and thank you. So
Forever.
I'm about 4.5 years into my journey, and the connection between my brain and my body is what I don't have a sense of progress per se in terms of my techniques, but I do have a sense of progress in that can I think something and then do it? Like, and when my brain and my body on those rare occasions are working together, I go, oh, okay, I've actually learned something because I'm not just reacting, I'm actually making a decision to do something. So when I
Yes.
see dancers and I think that capoeira, I think much like in gymnastics, if somebody's good at gymnastics, a good gymnast, I think easily picks up new skills because they understand where their body is all the time, as opposed to other sports where, you may be operating at only two planes. You're running forward or you're running laterally, but
Yeah.
the
And
gymnast
the
has to.
complexity is that it really helps. I think any kind of sport really helps. Not only because of how you know how your body moves, but
Right.
it's really good for your overall athleticism.
Yes,
Same thing goes for people who do breakdancing and they
I
start
agree. I
doing
agree.
jiu-jitsu. They have such a natural way of inverting. It's something that takes years
Yeah.
to develop for some people. It just goes natural for them. Same with capoeira. We're so used to being upside down, downside up.
Right.
That really helps. There's also a good thing to learn now is that the Brazilian football team, they also do capoeira sometimes. They
Mm.
don't do the kicks and the flips, but the footwork. Perfect
Yeah.
example is also for the people who are a little bit longer looking at the UFC. Anderson Silva, he also did a lot of capoeira. Now it's not. It's people say that you're doing UFC, and I'm like, oh, now he's doing capoeira, and now he's doing kickboxing. No, it's in every
Yeah.
move. It's not
Yeah.
like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
this kick is a karate kick and this kick is a kickboxing kick. No, it's in your footwork, in the way Anderson Silva moves, the feints he makes. That is capoeira.
That's
And that is
interesting.
really cool. We know Capoeira from, Capoeira, obviously, a huge, he made capoeira famous a little bit in Jiu Jitsu. And it's not like, oh, he now does a capoeira kick in the middle of rolling Jiu Jitsu. No, of course not. But the way his body moves, the way he twists and turns and moves, that is the flow that generates it. I think what you just said about when your brain and body are in tune,
Yeah.
that's really cool. We all had that moment when you're rolling and everything in the world just flows away. You're just in state of flow and you're done with the roll, all exhausted. You're like, what happened? I don't even know what happened. I was
Yes. Right.
so in the moment. Well, that feeling is what happens if you do capoeira as well or kickboxing or anything. So it's really
So
cool. It's just another way.
when you started to make a transition into jiu-jitsu and starting from the beginning, was it something that came to you very easily because your body was sort of ready? That, okay, you're used to being in all of these different planes of motion, upside down. You'd had the advantage of those experiences where most of us don't. So as you began, did things go quickly or not?
I'm gonna be very honest. I think they did, but
Yeah.
not for the better. Now, I think I have a good explanation of this.
Okay.
It was easy for me to play guard, to work upside down. It was also easy to do backward things because most people aren't used, whatever sport they do, if it's soccer or whatever, to turn backwards, like backstepping, long stepping, all those
Yes.
turning backward drills. That's hard for people. And whilst being upside down, especially, that came easy for me. But I did think now, after all those years, now looking back as a black belt, I think it kind of limited my learning progress. I think I'm going to give you a good example. If you start out, you're super strong, you're an ex-football player, rugby player, or you're just a big guy going to the gym. I
Mhm.
think you have a big advantage in jiu-jitsu, but you will lack the technique because you
Mhm.
can just muscle through. I think everyone understands this. I say an anywhere like when you're big and strong, you don't have to learn how to pass guard. Just put your elbows in,
Right.
and then you will have some success at the beginning. But eventually, you'll come to the point where it will no longer work, and you just skip the whole phase of technique because you could muscle through. I had that same thing with my flexibility, speed, and capoeira. I could kind of just wiggle out of shit and
Yeah.
just do a
Yeah.
quick fast or an escape, but
Yeah.
the technique wasn't good. I just got away with it. So my first learning curve as a white belt was really good as blue belt, but then eventually I got to a point where it's like, okay, I can no longer just pull this bullshit on purple belts or whatever. Now I got to really learn technique. So it was really good for me to finally hit that plateau. So the short answer is yes, it helped me. But the long answer is, well, I didn't think it was for the better just in the beginning. I
Yeah.
got away with it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, everybody has whatever physical gifts line up with, whatever is natural for them, you develop first. And then for me, there was so little that was natural that, my progress is very, very slow. But I can imagine had I come to jujitsu as a younger person, I started when I was 50, I would have had a different body that would have moved me in different ways. I would have been more attracted to certain movements. Whereas now I have,
What sport did you do before jiu-jitsu, may I ask?
yeah. So I grew up as a soccer player. I played soccer at various levels. And then uh, the last sort of focus of mine had been CrossFit for maybe 10 years. And as my joints just no longer could handle clean and jerks and snatches. And I just wasn't moving in a way that was going to make it something I could do for the rest of my life. I found jujitsu and I will do jujitsu for the rest of my life. Like I
Well,
found it,
but
found my home.
CrossFit, I got to give you that to you. Is I think those are one of the most athletic people I know. I work with a CrossFit box here in the city.
Hmm.
And a few of those guys train with me. They are so athletic, and it's a different form of athleticism as opposed to people who just go to the gym and train
Yes,
hypertrophy, like
yes,
building.
yeah.
Way more useful in jiu-jitsu. So yeah, you also use those perks, I think, in the beginning, whether you did it on purpose or not. And that's what happened with me for capoeira, same thing. So it did help. But
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, like I had an uncle, I have an uncle, but as a child and a teenager, he was a gymnast, and I remember being in the park with him, and he was about 50 years of age, and he was up on this swing set doing giant swings, and he dismounted in the park, and he did a layout like flip and stuck this lay at 50 years of age, and it was one of those moments, as a young person where I thought, oh, okay, like my perception of aging and what you can do with different has just got totally reset. Like my uncles were always good athletes, and that was part of family get-togethers. And I bring that up in that I feel like gymnastics is the foundation of many like sports, even if it's not perceived as gymnastics. I mean, the rotation of the body, the moving the body upside down, the knowing where you are in space. Very few things teach it in quite the same efficiency as gymnastics. So anyway,
here's an
that
interesting topic for you: is
yeah, tell
the
me.
more we mature in jiu-jitsu, the more technical we get, the less of a workout jiu-jitsu becomes.
Oh,
So
right,
you remember now,
absolutely.
the
Yeah,
first 2 years as white belt, blue belt, you get stronger from jiu-jitsu because you work a lot. Now, as you get way more technical,
right.
that's why you see sometimes some higher belts being a bit lazy, out of shape. It's usually because purple belts skip arms. I think that has to do with it too. But that's an interesting topic for next time. Seeing how as your jiu-jitsu matures, you get more technical. You have to take in your strength and conditioning training a bit more because jiu-jitsu is no longer the physical challenge for your body as it used to be at white belt, I
Yes,
think.
that's
But
yeah, yeah.
not an expert in that topic.
No, but I mean, just I'm not an expert either, but with just pure observation, when I say I compete, I just go to like local friendly tournaments, not competition at any meaningful level. But immediately, my first competition, looking at the behavior on the mats for white belts, which had a ton of, you know, s- spazzy activity, and then going to the black belts and watching their matches where that was elegant. All the movements had an
Yeah.
economy of, there wasn't anything really wasted. Well, on the topic of competition, I'm curious. In your competitive experiences, and you have a lot of competitive experiences, what stands out? Like, if I'm to ask you, what was the fight that you remember the most? What comes to mind immediately as like your most
Me personally, or one of my
yeah,
students, or the
yeah,
me personally?
let's start with you,
Okay.
yeah.
I always talk about the same fight because that was the one that stuck with me the most.
Yeah.
So want to do something else, but it is what it is. I had a lot of fights that I really enjoyed. I never really liked competing that much,
Mhm.
but I did enjoy it at the moment. I did some flying submissions, which I really liked. I won some matches in 6 or 7 seconds.
Wow.
Now looking back, I thought it was super reckless, and especially now when you see the videos of people injuring themselves.
Yeah.
I was doing flying arm bars. I hit those a few times, and flying entries, and just jumping for shit and scissor takedowns and all those kind of stuff. Now I'm like, oh my god, man, the fact that you're still walking, that's well, you shouldn't have done that. But yeah, that's looking back, hindsight. And at the moment, I thought I couldn't injure myself. But the fight I'm most proud of is I was living in Brazil, as I said to you a while ago, and I was training there, and I didn't have a gi because I was just doing a lot of no gi there. And then the coach from the team there, he asked me, "Hey, do you want to compete here in Brazil? We have a big competition coming up. It's a 5 hour drive and whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. When is it?" He said, "Yeah, tomorrow." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. Can I borrow a gi?" Because it was in the gi. He said, "Yeah, sure, you can borrow a gi." Okay, so we went there. We had to leave at like 4 or 5 a.m. because it was a fucking long drive. You have to imagine not only the time, it was a few years ago, but also in Brazil, there was no smooth comb,
Yes, right.
was no app telling you when you had to fight. You just came there at like 5 a.m. Or like in the morning you left. There were all of these people. You register with a pen on a paper, and you just got warm and got ready.
Right.
And then you had to wait. And then your name could have been told any second. So you were just, I'm ready. And no one
Yeah.
called my name, ready. And then the hours turned I had to wait 6 hours. But
Oh my
if I
goodness.
had known I had to wait 6 hours, I would just had a coffee, relax, but I was ready all the time for
Yeah,
six
for
hours.
6 hours.
Man,
Yeah.
finally got to the match. Now listen, this is funny. I got to the match. I was like, I didn't know anyone. I was in Brazil, so I went up to this Brazilian guy, and he took the first grip of my gi, and within 3 seconds, I knew, holy shit, this guy's like, I felt his grips. This was someone who trains 4 times a day in Brazil, and whoa, hey, who's this gringo here? So I had the match, and I got ragdolled, man. I think he scored 250 points on me. I don't know, but and it was 50 degrees, well, whatever Celsius. It was super hot. I was
Right.
in the gi. I had traveled the whole night. I didn't prepare. It was a day in advance, and I
Sure.
was laying there. There's even a video of that. I watched it back a few times. You see my hand coming out in a submission to tap, and I remember laying there, and I thought, fuck this. Sorry, can I say it on the podcast?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yes.
I was laying there, and I thought, like, I didn't come all the way to Brazil to beat here to tap to this fucking choke. I'll either get out or I'll go to sleep. I don't care. Which, by
Right.
the way, on record, don't recommend anyone doing that. Now as a coach, never. But at that point, being a
Right.
young version of me, I was like, who cares? And I would have, I knew I had lost anyway because he had 100 points. And you see my hand on the video getting out to tap. And then at the final second, my hand goes, nah, and I escaped. I got out, and he won by points. And for me, that was like a huge victory. That specific match, that specific competition, because of all the mental aspect I had
Yes.
to challenge
Yes.
that. Doing a fight there one day in advance, not having a gi, just borrowing one, going all the way in Brazil. I didn't know anyone. I didn't even know the team. I just walked to the gym there. I didn't even plan on doing jiu-jitsu there, and or I did, but not at the team. And everything went like that. I finally got there, registered, had to wait all day, and everything in my whole DNA wanted to quit. I was just done with it. I wanted to go home to the
Right.
beach. Said to myself, nope, I don't care how I lose, but I'm not gonna tap here. And that was my proudest moment.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I asked that question because I'm like the two things that I'm curious about is that in extreme circumstances like that, and I would consider that an extreme circumstance, you're exhausted. I mean, extreme relative to the competitive experiences,
Mhm.
and I feel like those experiences reveal something about us. Like it tells us, teaches something about who we are to ourselves, and then also changes us, I think, a little bit. Like that fight, maybe that was a pivot where you recognized in these circumstances, I don't have to quit in these circumstances and I can survive it. Or conversely, this was not worth it. Like this was a misjudgment and I should have tapped
Mm.
and all the rest of it. But if I ask you
I
those
do
type of
think now,
ideas, yeah, I'm just curious. If I ask you those type of ideas, I mean, did you feel like it gave you insight into who you were and maybe did it change you
oh
in
man,
some way?
100%. And I think it really, I think it really made me a really better coach now, all those years later.
Oh,
Because
yes.
if you're a coach, you only have a lot of competitive success. Now, by the way, no one, it's not always a high. Everyone loses and gets ups and downs. Everyone struggles with their own fights. But for me, having all those, having won submissions and cool matches, choking people unconscious on the mats, I did those things. But I also struggle with losing, fighting in a higher weight class, the thing in Brazil. And I think that really makes me a better coach because now when I coach my students and they have a competition, they're nervous or they are scared. I understand that feeling because I've had that too. And when they're feeling super high because they won, I understand that feeling too because I've been in both those situations.
Mhm.
And we have some guys that are like born to compete. There's some people that are just born to compete. They look as if they don't have any fear. They just live for it. But what really respects me is when I see one of my students competing and their whole DNA was not made to compete. They're super scared. They're nervous weeks in advance. They're there and they finally get there and they're super, well, on edge and nervous. And then they go out there and they compete. Well,
Yeah.
I have so much respect for that, but I understand that because I've been there too.
Mhm.
And I think as a coach, that makes me so much better because I can level with all of those students, whether what they're doing, everyone's struggling in their own way. But I think I have the empathic, how do you
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah, like an empathy to them. Yeah, that you
To
can,
understand that because I've been there and I know what it's like and I
yeah.
know how it's scary is. I did my first competition in jiu-jitsu when I did jiu-jitsu for 2 weeks.
Oh
I
my
trained
goodness.
2 weeks. I did my first competition. My coach said, "You want to compete?" I said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I
Right.
won my first match and then well, but it was amazing. And now people are like, "Yeah, am I ready to compete?" When I got 20 stripes on my white belt, that was my first competition. When the
Right.
moon turns red, no, yesterday, let's go.
Well,
And
that's my follow-up question, I guess, in that when, how do you perceive competition in, eh, the jujitsu journey? Do you think it's reserved for just a certain group of people, or do you think everybody should try a competition? What's your opinion about that?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Now, I'm biased because my life goal is being a coach and helping people develop. I think that's my main thing.
Hmm.
And I'm a YouTuber and I make YouTube videos, and I'm not a diehard competitor. So if you would ask them, you would get a whole different opinion. But you're asking me. So I do think it's a big aspect of jiu-jitsu. Yesterday we had some promotion in my gym, and as I told you, one of my students, she won our Europeans, and some other guys that really compete too. And I say that factor weighs in, but the factor of you teaching or helping out with class, that also weighs in, or the factor that you started at an older age but still grinding in the journey, that also weighs in. And all of those aspects I take into account. Now, competition for me is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
I think jiu-jitsu is a competitive sport, but 90% of the people out there who do jiu-jitsu don't even compete or barely compete. So
Right.
it would be ridiculous if we were to say that's the most holiest thing ever.
Right.
But if you were to ask a seasoned competitor, they would say. Now, what I do think that there's nothing compares to competition to get a reflection at your own self. I think
Yeah.
it's the experience is so different than the training mats. And what I recommend my students, and now listen closely to words recommend and did not expect them or demand them to do. Of course not. I've had a guy, I had several students, but one of my students I promoted to blue belt and purple belt. Has been training for years, years, years. He never competed, and he deserves that belt. Now, I do recommend people, and I do try to get them enthusiastic to at least compete once in their life to get the experience. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter when, just at least try it once, because
Yeah.
then you can decide. And you never want to say at the end of your life, I wish I had. And even better yet, I really like this philosophy. Try to compete once at every belt level,
Yeah.
because a
Yes.
purple belt competition is way different than a white belt competition.
Yes.
And just try it out every. You can do 5 at white belt and 1 at blue. I don't care, but try to compete at least once on every belt and see what does it bring you. Not necessarily in technique, like, oh, I have to work this, but more, what does it bring you mentally? And I
Yes.
think that for me as a coach, I'm way more focused on the mental aspect and the development for the human being and the person behind
Yes.
the jiu-jitsu accomplishments. So that would be my philosophy. Compete at least once,
At
try it
every
out
belt.
at
Yeah.
least once at every belt because it's
Yeah.
so different.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And for me, in my very small competitive experiences, that I don't always have a sense of like, oh, am I physically performing differently? But I do have a sense of my emotional relationship to the contest. I can I remain calm in, the fact that I get as nervous as I do for these things, it amuses me on some level because the outcome of the contest doesn't have any consequence to me. Like nothing really changes. But internally, I feel like I want to win and I want to do well and I don't want to embarrass my teammates and professor and all the different emotional things that go on. And, don't want to get hurt, all of those things. Um, and every competition, I find myself a little calmer. And my opinion is that this mastery of the stress in front of you then spills over into other parts of your life where there is consequence,
100%.
right? And then you can be in the face of discomfort just a little bit more comfortable for our jujitsu work. As a coach, you've touched all these lives over all these years. Do you have a favorite story of somebody that you either coached directly or had in your gym where jujitsu had a profound effect on their life that you could share with us?
Yeah, I'm very blessed and very happy that I can think of many. So that is,
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate the fact that I'm in a position to say that, and also that I can have to choose who to talk about instead of, yeah, did I actually fact? Because I think at the end of my journey, my most important thing is uh, whose heart did I change through
Right.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu. One of my favorite examples as a teacher, he once said, he said last year to me, he said, at the end of the day, people don't care about your belt, your medals, your skills. They care about how you made them feel and what you did for them. I think that's really true. So
Yes.
I'm really happy that I can say that. I'm happy that I changed several lives and helped some people with jiu-jitsu, whether it was for them to get more confident or get a bit humbled or
Yes. Yes.
they were bullied or whatever. There's a lot of those stories, but I think the one of the best ones is kind of recent for the past few years. One of the current instructors in my gym, so we just built a big new gym here in the Netherlands, a huge, huge place. And he came in a few years ago at the gym at the old place. I had his first class, and he vomited everywhere on the mats.
Wow.
On the no, sorry, not on the mats, but on toilets. And the
Right.
class after he vomited everywhere, and he was completely. We thought, oh my god, who is this guy? He didn't have really much going for him, and it was well, it's illegal here in the Netherlands, but smoking a lot of weed, smoking, and through jujitsu, I slowly saw his life getting changed, and uh, had a difficult time maintaining a job and finding. And now he works full time at the gym. Teaches
Okay.
the. He's completely. He's a huge athletic growth. He's really good at jujitsu. Competes, teaches class, teaches fundamentals class, helps out everywhere. He got the gym logo tattooed on his chest. A while ago, he said to me that he actually wrote something on a review. Said you completely changed my life,
Yeah. Huh.
which I gave back to him. Like, no, you changed your life. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if he ever hears this, I think he's gonna listen to this one day. But he knows who I'm talking about. But he changed his own life. I was just there. So
That's so wonderful. Yeah. I mean,
just gave him the door, and he
yeah.
took the road. That's the thing. And there's dozens of other guys in the team out there, and or even outside my team who I really should have helped and have helped. But this is one of the most beautiful things that jujitsu didn't change his life on the mats, but also his life off the mats. And I know it
Yes.
sounds like a cliche for anyone listening, but it is beautiful. This guy now found a job. He found a family. He found friends. He everything through the jujitsu. Um, which just not so long ago was a place where he went to get a workout and training, thought he wanted to do MMA more. And, he could have quit there that first class when he vomited everything and
That's right.
got sick, but he didn't. And
Yeah.
ups and downs, injuries, competition, winning and losing, he's still
Sure.
here and growing every day.
Just like the fight that you had to, you drive 5 hours and then you had to wait 6 hours, and then, you found it within yourself to kind of like hold on to
Yeah.
the very end. This gentleman, comes in surely vomiting in front of
Yep.
everybody was his own fight. The fact that he didn't tap on that day, he could have like said, you know what, I
Yep.
can't go back and be with those people. It's embarrassing and so on and so
Also,
forth.
serious injuries, some serious knee injuries, dislocated
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
shoulders. We had some competitions where it went really bad, got injured, and thought about quitting, but every time persistent and continuing. And now, if only a year ago he could have known that he's now living life. He's an instructor. He does private classes. He travels. He teaches kids.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, he works with some people in mental health care where he teaches MMA, and it's like MMA, but it's more of a workout to
Sure.
help those people in like a daycare setting.
Uh-huh.
So really touching the hearts. And now the real cool thing is he had his first coaching experience himself last weekend when one of his kids students had a fight, and he called me. He said, "Never have I been so nervous and sweaty. Uh, I'm more nervous than competing
Yeah.
myself." I said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, man, now you understand." And he was so proud. The kid won. The kid had his first competition. He did 2 months of jiu-jitsu. He medaled. He got the medal, and he was so proud. And I saw a picture of him hugging the kid, and I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, I'm passing it forward to him, but now he's
That's
passing
right.
it forward. And this is what I think is that jiu-jitsu is truly about.
Yes. Yeah. I love and what you said about it being passed forward. I think when we do these good things, we treat each other properly, we help each other, that those actions echo, well past when we realize. I mean, who knows how big the circle of the impact of these good things you've done and the good things that your students have done out there in the world. We're lucky in today's day and age, right? You and I are connecting around the world, and there's people who can learn about you through your YouTube channels. You want to talk a little bit about where people could come find you if they want to come?
They really come find me. I'm here in the Netherlands, guys.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I think that's a great
uh,
idea.
our gym, we have the headquarters gym where we have classes daily, several times a day, and it's open to everyone. But also we have some franchise gyms in some nearby cities. Any
Okay.
place where I teach or that's affiliated with my team, we're open to everyone. We get visitors from all around the world sometimes. So whoever, we had a guy in Mexico last week or
Oh,
from
how
Australia,
cool.
just drop in. We have open mats. We have classes, gi, no gi, whatever. About the social media, which I think is a bit easier than getting a plane ticket to the Netherlands. Energia martial arts or Term Energia. You can find me on Instagram, posting reels, just techniques, and mainly on YouTube, but also on BJ Fanatics if you want to dive deeper into some of my instructionals, leg locks or my guard system, or even I did a recent instructional for beginners on top pin controls. They're all going really good at BJ Fanatics. I think everyone knows how to find that, and just type in my name. But for YouTube, yeah, I have a lot of free content out there. I really love sharing jiu-jitsu. and the YouTube channel completely went out of hand because it started out with some videos for our students. But then nowadays I'm traveling the world thanks to YouTube, and I really love teaching there. And we have an awesome following, people who really love the videos. It's mostly nogi, so if people understand nogi, then be sure to check it out. And if you ever have a question, just drop in the comments. I try to answer. I think I can say I answer every comment personally
That's
since we
awesome.
started YouTube. Even now with over like I don't know 24 or 25,000 subscribers, I answer every comment personally. So if you ever have any questions, just shoot me up.
That's amazing. Well, we're very grateful that you took the time out. I know it's been crazy for you the last few weeks, and it's probably never not incredibly busy. I know you're gonna get a lot of travel coming up, and I'm just thank you so much. And maybe you'll come back
Thank
and
you, brother.
yeah, thank you very much. Maybe you'll come back and do this again another time.
Would be my honor. I really loved it.